Yesterday was definitely, well, it was definitely a day. I'm not gonna lie. As somebody who has no stake in this game, I sat back and enjoyed the chaos to the fullest. I'm neither a Madrid or City fan, so I really didn't give a damn if Rodri or Vinny won. I personally thought Rodri had a sturdy case, but the general idea seemed to be that Vinny would be the winner, and I agreed that he would be a sensible pick. Apparently, the voters didn't. Now, was I surprised? Sure, so was everybody else. But the reaction to it from across the football world has been way more harsh than I was expecting. There's been this mass wave of fans, and even some players claiming Vinny was robbed. Some are even calling it the worst robbery in the history of the award. Now, I didn't want to say this shit yesterday while everybody was in the heat of the anger, but I do think there's a lot of exaggeration going on here, and the entire thing is a bit dramatic. Worst Ballon d'Or robbery ever? Yeah, let's be serious. There's been worse. Come on now. I think the most interesting thing about this whole thing is the entire wave of people kind of making Vinny's season out to be something it really wasn't. He did probably have the best case, I'll be honest. He turned up in the Champions League knockouts and put up a few elite big game performances both there and in the league. Bayern home and away, the final against Dortmund, Girona home in the league, and the Super Cup final hat-trick against Barcelona. But I feel like it's valid to take into account that he was bad for Brazil. 2 pretty poor group stage games out of 3 before getting suspended for the quarterfinal game, which they lost. As the superstar of the national team, that's terrible. In the league, he got off to the slow start while dealing with injuries for a few months too. Didn't really get into a good flow until the new calendar year. I'm not really mad at them taking into account Rodri's consistency and value to any team he's on. Can you call him kind of boring? I mean, yeah, but he does his boring job to perfection, and that boring job just happens to be the most important position in modern football. Pep's influence and the way he's contributed to changing the game has platformed Rodri's position to arguably the most valuable in the sport right now, whether you consider him a DM or a box-to-box midfielder or some freak hybrid of both. He's never going to be the flashiest or most exciting player on the team, and that's why you're getting all these arguments about him not being his team's best player in any competition this year, whether it was Spain or City. But he's the one constant on both teams, and he's essential to the success of both. Just ask Foden, he'll tell you. Combine that with his numerous clutch goals and the fact that City lost every single one of their games without him in the league last year, biggest robbery ever is just a little too much in my opinion. There's a lot of years where this wouldn't fly, but looking at the holes in Vinny's season, I can understand it at least. With all that being said, though, what is the actual worst robbery in the history of the award? The easy cop-out answer would be Lewandowski in 2020. They literally canceled the award for no reason after Bayern won the Sextuple and Lewandowski had 34 Bundesliga goals and 15 Champions League goals. Basically was far and away a shoo-in for the Ballon d'Or. But despite the outrageous decision, it wouldn't really count here because another player didn't rob him, so he goes in the honorable mentions for that year. Now, just to be clear, before I put forward any names, I want to say that I don't think there's any Ballon d'Or winners at all that have straight up robbed somebody, because to me, robbing someone means you had no case at all and still won. Every winner had a case in my opinion. But in the context of this video, robbed would just mean the worst instances where someone deserved it more than someone else. Quick disclaimer, because some of y'all really be trying to tussle over some little misunderstandings. We're going to stick to the years after the Ballon d'Or became open to everyone instead of just Europeans. The first year I'd nominate would be 2001, the infamous Michael Owen one. This one I kind of understand a little bit, I guess. There had to be a winner and nobody was really insane this year. Feel me? It was kind of a down year. But Owen has 16 league goals and 3 assists, didn't even play in the Champions League, and Liverpool finished 3rd. The main reason he won is because he won 4 trophies, and none of them were really major ones. I went back and watched some of the significant matches from his Ballon d'Or season a while ago, and it's a little hard to see him as a best player in the world level player. I'm kind of interested in how people reacted to it back then, because I know there was a ton of backlash. If any of y'all who are subscribed to this channel were around back then, let me know, because I really want to know how people, looked at him as a player back then. Motherfuckers in Spain was probably like, who is this bum-ass, square-head-ass, wide forehead-ass? Raul would have been a better winner in my opinion. He came second, but he scored 24 goals in Madrid's league-winning team and 7 Champions League goals in a team that made the semifinals before losing to Bayern. The second year I'd nominate, and this should be expected. I mean, come on now, look at my profile picture. I'm nominating 2004 because of Thierry Henry. Now, 2003, I've come to understand over time. I watched some of Nedved's UCL performances, and I'm not going to lie, he was hooping. Henry's 24 goals and Prem record 20 assists was insanity, and you could easily argue that he was the best individual player in the world at the time, but Serie A was that league at that time. The Prem were low-key side characters. Nedved leading Juventus to the Serie A title while going nuts in the Champions League and taking them all the way to the final, where he couldn't play because he was suspended, was definitely more impressive at the time. Arsenal went out in the second group stage of the UCL and missed out on the league title to United. Pretty sure the only trophy they won that year was the FA Cup. Overall, I can see why they gave it to Nedved over him. But 2004, I just can't let that one slide. Shevchenko won Serie A's Golden Boot with 24 goals, and Milan won the league, but Henry won the Prem undefeated with Arsenal and dropped 30 goals. Despite Serie A being the clearly better league at the time, you would think the undefeated record would help Henry out at least a little bit. Milan and Arsenal got bounced in the same round of the UCL too, the quarterfinals, and both scored numerous goals in the group stage to start the season. Shevchenko was better in Ukraine's World Cup qualifiers, but they also didn't play in the Euros at all, while Henry scored a couple Euro goals. Henry's start to the 2004 season was better than Shevchenko's too. By the time the end of the year approached, Henry had already blown past 20 goal contributions for Arsenal. Mind you, instead of being the clear favorite, Henry got even less votes than he got the previous year and finished 4th. To be fair now, Deco did lead Porto to an unlikely UCL win, and he was part of the Portugal team that made it to the Euros final, but under no circumstances was Deco better than Henry that year, I promise you. Ronaldinho was the third person that finished above Henry that year, and that was bullshit too, especially with Ronaldinho not really winning anything at all. Barca lost the league to Valencia, got bounced in the round of 16 of the Europa back when it was called the UEFA Cup, and to be honest, the main thing carrying Ronaldinho here would have been Brazil winning the Copa America, except he wasn't even in the squad for the tournament. Just Shevchenko, or maybe even Deco too, finishing above Henry would have still been questionable, but at least less insane. All three of them, yeah, if I was around back then, I would have had an aneurysm. No social media back then, too. Arsenal fans was fuming in their living rooms with nobody to vent to. The third year I nominate is 2018. This one's probably been mentioned over and over. I even remember bringing it up in an old video myself. I'm sorry, though. I just don't think it should have been him. If he'd actually won the World Cup while leading Croatia, it would have been a different story. But they lost. And then the whole narrative about him being the guy that carried the sad little nation of bums was created. Bruh, Croatia was good. A good, well-built squad, and there were multiple players that performed very well throughout the tournament. It wasn't Modric and 10 crackheads he picked up from a Croatian corner. I always say it, but I never liked how downplayed Modric's teammates were to make his Ballon d'Or push more valid. For me, there were two other players that could have won. Griezmann, who was kind of overshadowed by Mbappe's breakout tournament, but was undoubtedly France's best player throughout that World Cup on their way to winning it. He also led Atletico Madrid to a Europa League win with 9 goal contributions in 8 games and a brace in the final. Then there was Ronaldo, 15 goals in 13 Champions League games on his way to completing that famous 3-peat. It didn't end up mattering much, but he did have that hat-trick against Spain at the World Cup too. I'm pretty sure he had over 60 goals in the calendar year as well. Modric had a case. In my opinion, it wasn't better than the others. The last year I nominate is 2021. With the bullshit that happened the year before and then the fact that Lewandowski went even crazier in the Bundesliga, I really wish he got that one. 41 goals in 29 league games, breaking the Bundesliga scoring record while barely playing 27 90s. What probably killed his charge the most was his relatively weak UCL campaign where he only played 6 games and scored 5 times as Bayern got bounced in the quarterfinals. Despite that though, he still took home 4 trophies including the Club World Cup, UEFA Super Cup, and DFL Super Cup to go with the league title while scoring 48 times in all competitions. Messi won the Copa del Rey but finished 3rd in the league. What really got him the win was finally winning the Copa America. To be fair, he was beyond unreal in that tournament. Never, ever, ever let anybody lie to you about Copa America 2021. Messi was bugging out. But when you combine this year with what they did to Lewandowski the previous year, it just comes off as one big injustice. Messi was a deserved winner, but I do think Lewis deserved it more this season. There's definitely a few other controversial years. Robbery was probably the best player on that treble-winning Bayern team, but he finished 3rd behind Messi in 2nd and trophyless Ronaldo in 1st. He had his case, but what it ultimately came down to was not being able to come close to their insane individual numbers, and he wasn't all that in the UCL knockouts. There was 2019 too, but Messi Messi was so insane that year that it's hard to criticize his slight victory over Van Dijk. 2023 was probably the most interesting because a treble with a golden boot versus an all-timer World Cup campaign was definitely a tough dilemma for voters. I wouldn't have been mad if either won, but the Ballon d'Or always leans World Cup, so I'll give him a pass on that one. Out of all the years I nominated, though, I'd say the roughest of them all had to be Henry in 2004, mainly because of how low he finished on the list. Fourth after what he did that year is just confusingly absurd. I read somewhere that Shevchenko was kind of being honored for his overall career there as well as that season, but I also don't remember where I read that, so don't take that as a fact, please. I might be wrong. 2018 would be my other pick as well, though. No disrespect to Modric, but come on now. In general, though, I think the word robbery when it comes to Ballon d'Ors is a bit exaggerated and overused. Sure, there's some questionable decisions and a few that I flat out disagree with, but at the very least, every winner has had at least a somewhat solid case. As for this year, I feel bad for Vinny because it does seem like he was misled to believe that he was winning, and that's kind of fucked up. His story from being hated and disrespected by his own teammates to beloved in Madrid and a notorious big game player is one of the best stories in the sport. It's unfortunate that he didn't get his moment, but who knows, maybe it'll come soon. For now, Rodri is the holder of the award, and congrats to him. Who do y'all think was the least deserving Ballon d'Or of all time? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna catch y'all later.